I'll just stand at attention. That's the military.
You are live.
In uniform.
Okay, we're live. We're just being told, and we're excited to be here this Sunday afternoon with y'all. We've got a great guest for you today, Lieutenant Colonel Brayman from U.S. Air Force retired, call sign Caveman. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. He's an F-14, F-15 pilot, F-16. Done a little bit of it all. We're going to be talking to him and find out some things from him. We are blessed to have his wife, Michelle, with us. And she's going to talk to some of you about what she's been through, what she's gone through, and ways the Lord has helped her get through that. But first, like we always do, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Colonel, would you mind?
I'll do it, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's get on hold. I got a few rooms to sit back down for this. All right. Let's go over opening prayer and then we can get on with the Dear Heavenly Father, oh Lord God, we love you. And we're so grateful that you love us. We ask you to bless today's broadcast, Lord, that people that need to be touched, let them be touched by the information and just everything that's put out before them today. Allow them to see the countenance of the colonel and his wife, and how much the Lord means to them, Lord. And just ask you for a good broadcast today. We ask you, we thank you for blessing them with a safe passage. We ask for safe passage home on the way home. And as they do for now and I coming out of Oklahoma. We're just so grateful, Lord, that you even care about us a little bit. It's just more than we ever deserve. And we thank you for your Son and his sacrifice. And we pray all this in your holy and precious name. Amen.
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 Okay, let me get my headset on. Well, it's going to be fun. Donna doesn't have a headset. We can talk about her and she can't hear it.
I can hear you.
I know you can. All right. Colonel, you want to tell us a little bit about your military career?
Well, all right. So, first of all, thank you for inviting my wife and I to this. I think it's a great venue, a blessing just to be here, and I'm sure a blessing to many.
Oh, absolutely.
Every time you do this. I'm just honored to be part of it. I'll start with kind of rounding out my military career, looking back. I am a Missouri farm boy,
Okay.
and my wife is a Missouri farm girl. We didn't meet till a little bit later after some of my Air Force career, but I started as an Air Force enlisted man, enlisted from Missouri. My first airplane trip, in fact, was to go to San Antonio,
Oh, wow.
which was quite a shock when Sergeant Rodriguez jumped on the bus and went right to me. But you know what? He was a great man, and that started a great Air Force career for me. I was down at Blytheville Air Force Base, Arkansas, working supply, logistics, and then refueling bombers and tankers.
Oh, wow.
At Blytheville. And one day my first sergeant said, "You'll be going to the education office and getting your commission
Oh, wow.
somehow." He believed in me, and that was such a great lesson for me. Master Sergeant Nagler, or Senior Master Sergeant Nagler, what a tremendous man he was. And so that started me off. I got a scholarship from there, went to college
Oh, wow.
at SIUC, got an engineering degree, and then entered the Air Force with my butter bars and started flight training at Del Rio, Laughlin Air Force Base, Texas. And that was awesome. Slow start. I only had 11 hours when I started pilot training. And I'm trying to get my son ready for this, and he's getting a lot more than I had. But I slowly ramped up due to some great instructors there, and ended up doing very well and getting fighter qualified, as they said in the day. Went to do the A-37, or the OA-37, forward air control. Did a lot of work with the Army. Mm-hmm. I know about chicken soup and bad coffee, I can tell you that. And then on to from there to the F-15. in Alaska. Wonderful job turning away Soviets and others from our shores.
Oh,
That was
wow.
really cool. Strategic air defense, they call it, and the F-15 was my baby. But I had some other babies. And then from there, I went to be a fighter lead-in instructor at Holloman Air Force Base, where I taught those that were coming in on my path to be fighter pilots, not just pilots.
Uh-huh.
So dogfighting skills, bombing and strafing and flying low level, and it was just a great job. I love instructing,
Oh, very
and
cool.
some of the best responses and experiences I had in service were teaching students. Then from there to Desert Storm from fighter lead-in, and did planning and stuff for the recovery of Kuwait, pushing Saddam Hussein and those out. And then went to the F-15 Eagle from there at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. And so I'm flying the Eagle now for a second time, which I really loved. From there, I had to spend some desk time in Korea as the weapons officer for 7th Air Force, and so I studied China a lot.
Oh, wow.
And
I bet.
by the way, the South Koreans are wonderful people. That was really cool. Although I wasn't flying, so I was eager to get back at it. And from Korea, I went to the F-16 at Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico, and then did a lot of trips back over to Southwest Asia. And in fact, I'm one of the few that flew the F-15 and the F-16 in combat over there. And so that was cool. And the Viper, like the Eagle, is a wonderful airplane. And then from Cannon Air Force Base, I went to be an instructor again at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, and then retired from active duty. After retiring, I did the airline a while, and I found this wonderful woman, Michelle, and she had the same ideals I did about what things should be. And so we hit it off, and we got married, and we had kids. And then when 9/11 happened, we both looked at that and looked at each other, and I said, "You know what I'm doing?" She said, "Yeah, I know what you're doing. You're going back in." And I did. So now I entered the Missouri Air National Guard, which was super cool also. Worked first as a Air Operations Center strategy expert at, well, I'll say expert, at Jefferson Barracks, and again, many combat tours from there. After serving 15 plus years in the Air National Guard, I finally retired and went to work for Sierra Nevada Corporation, a great company that does some really cool things for Air Force airplanes, modifications, et cetera. And I did I carried some snake eaters for another company, which I probably shouldn't mention because it's fairly a secret, but hauling guys around to do some special missions, special operations, and some ISR stuff, et cetera. After that, Michelle and I were looking at each other one day in Colorado and said, we need to plant our flag somewhere. And so I said, where is the most patriotic place on earth? And she said, that'd be Branson, Missouri. Now, nothing to take nothing from Springfield. But so we went there, and we're there now. And I continue to be a flight instructor part-time. Michelle works as the leader of the entire North Central region of Classical Conversations Homeschool Group, and she can tell you more about that. So she works a lot harder than I do. I hate to say it, but it's true. And I am the North Central Regional Operations Director for the U.S. Air Force to ensure that all the Civil Air Patrol squadrons in that region can do their job. My specific states are, of course, Missouri and Kansas. I'm responsible for them. And so we travel a lot together. We do a lot of jobs together. And we trade off how we're doing our work, but it turns out to be good for both of our missions. And so that's where we're at now. And living in Branson, Missouri. We have a son up in Jeff City or near there as a technician. We have a son who is preparing to enter the Air Force in a year. He and his wife with him. We have a daughter in North Carolina who graduated summa cum laude from College of the Ozarks, oh, by the way.
Oh,
Not
very
proud
nice.
about that at all. And she's a wonderful girl and extremely smart. And she's now taken her master's in North Carolina to do theater production.
Oh,
And then we have Sam, who is 18, just graduated from high school, becoming a lineman, extremely smart mechanically, great kid. They're all great. And so we're busy,
I guess so.
and but we dig it. And so that's our thing. We're a patriotic Christian family.
Amen.
This is funny because I just told Donna this just the other day, that I've heard that there have been high-ranking military officers, or Air Force, Army, whatever, Special Forces, that have been coming and retiring in Branson because someday this is going to be a hot spot for Christianity. And see, I told you.
I think as hotspots go, it is already.
Yeah, true.
But there's a lot of work we need to do for our nation and for the Lord.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Okay, great. 36 years approximately.
Yes.
Wow, that's just amazing. Thank you so much for that.
It's
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
so much.
I'm just in awe of the fighter pilot.
Yeah, I know. She wanted to be one once upon a time. So she's
I
kinda-
did, then I got glasses and then there it goes.
Well, anyhow.
Senior year.
Those who want to serve, we all have that thing and that thread in common, don't we?
Mhm,
We all have
absolutely,
that
sir.
feeling, yes.
Yeah, have to. I just hope they hold on to that when they're told to do else. Okay, so we know about your military career. There's probably some more things people want to know, but I'm not going to ask because it's not real cool. But your Christian life. How old were you when you were saved, or what stage of life? I guess is probably better to ask.
Well, I was a kid.
Okay.
I was 12 or 13.
Oh wow.
Went to Pine Creek Baptist Church, which very few would know about, down in Lynchburg, Missouri, which people would also know very little about. But that was our church. And yeah, I just felt it was time, and I had grown up always believing in Jesus Christ, and I decided to walk up there and make it known. But I've often thought about this thing that you are discussing. I don't hardly see how people can go to war and feel comfortable about what they're doing, or to serve in any dangerous mission, job, without believing in Jesus Christ. I'll tell you, every time I lit the burners on the F-15, I said a prayer. First of all, it's a rocket, and you need to hope that things go well when you push it forward. But also, you had to keep the enemy in mind. And the enemy gets a vote too, right? Now, we have a great force, and we have great people, and we're trained very well. So war didn't scare me so much, but you got to be real, right? You had to be realistic. And so even just flying, training was so dangerous and exciting. And being at war, you never knew what might happen. So I had to take Jesus with me everywhere I went. And that made me comfortable. I never was scared. Doesn't mean I didn't think.
Right.
And I wanted to bring my wingman home. And I think if what drives you is Christianity, those principles, it works good for everything, including flying fighters and bringing your wingman home.
Amen to that. I can understand what that does. Ma'am, how much time did you spend with Jesus when he was away?
Quite a bit.
I'll bet.
But all the time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always, day in, day out. But I'm sure during those times when he was deployed, it was an extra comfort.
Absolutely. And I think when you retired for the second time, I think we had tallied up. Samuel, our youngest, was about 8, or maybe a little older than 8. And I think we had figured up, he had been deployed 7 years,
Oh, my goodness.
7 of the 8. So, yeah,
Wow.
lots of times on our knees.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, go ahead,
Oh,
man.
I was just gonna say, I've said it several times before, but having a wife here, it's like, your family serves with you.
Oh,
And it's like,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, I think it's harder for her and maybe the children too. You know, like the last time I was in Afghanistan, I would call home and it just bothered me as being the basic man that I am, that I couldn't be there doing things for them and watching over them. And so, but Michelle is tough, and I think she was tougher than I was. And she always had things handled, tried not to put any stress on me. But combat flying and stuff was not my worry, it was my family. Because I kind of had that down. And so that was my worry. And I've always said, you serve together, you serve as a family. And indeed, I think the family often pays in some ways greater than you do as the serviceman or woman.
I can understand that. I mean, especially a mothering type wife. I'm not saying you are, but they're always wanting to do like you want to do for them. They want to do for you, and when you're not there,
Yes.
that's got to be a rough feeling too. Anything you'd like to know?
I was just thinking about what he said. I mean, especially when you're talking about she's saying you were gone for pretty much 7 years of your youngest. I mean, I grew up a military brat. I'm a Marine brat. And,
We won't hold it against her,
yeah,
no.
uh-huh. And I just remember Dad looking at pictures because he was gone for so many years. And so just knowing that's where I figured out the family serves with you. And there's things that Dad's going to miss. And he comes back and he regrets it sometimes, but then I know that was necessary.
Well,
So it's kind of,
that's a good point. And I never regretted my service. But every deployment bothered me just because I was not going the way I wanted to be going, right? And I was always concerned about them. And I'll tell you, you spoke of pictures. Talk about the value of pictures. And I could show you a picture. I'll try to keep from crying about it. But, you know, I had my little cubicle, my little metal cubicle I lived in for a while in Iraq. Just all the walls were filled up with pictures and the kids drawing some really ugly drawings of things. And I don't mean bad, but I mean stick figures, probably better than I can do, but I'm just saying. I love those so much, and I took a lot of pictures just of them so I could capture that moment and remember, you know, how cool. And the letters from Michelle it was life-saving to me. And again, it wasn't because I was so depressed or tough being in war. You know, I'm a warrior.
Right.
But it was hard. And so she supported me in that way. And then, of course, I wrote letters and found a way to get on the internet and do FaceTime and anything we could do to talk together during that time.
Well, it's not a replacement, but the age of technology is sure different versus waiting months to get
I'll
one
bet,
letter, you know?
so true, yeah.
You kind of wonder how they made it back
Oh,
Every one of my deployments were from 90 days to 7 months.
then. Oh, wow.
And the Air Force is really good about not deploying people for long times, but there's a lot of them sometimes. And in the Guard, I actually spent more time in combat than I did in active duty, just because the nature of the mission. You know, we were doing a lot of cleanup in Iraq, and then Afghanistan was going on. And so the air operations work, the 157th Air Operations Group there, strategy, running the AOC, running all the missions, deciding the priorities of the war for the Air Force side, and then flying later in the Guard as I got into ISR was just a lot. But the flying kept me busy. That was a good thing. Right?
That's amazing. Again, I just can't stop saying thank you for what you both have done.
So you've had, both of you, I mean, even in your mission, I'm going to say, because that's a mission too that you're on, how do you share Jesus with those that you serve with? How do you show them the hope that they have? Because I know you've definitely probably seen some things and your men have probably seen some things. How do you give them that hope and try
Well,
and share that
I'll
with
let
them?
Michelle talk some about this because they are a Christ-centered education group, and I hear her, we have our desk together at home. We both work from home and travel a lot, and I hear the prayers, and I hear her working to help families that are having some serious issues, as some are now. My work with Civil Air Patrol is certainly God-centered in my mind. We're not so religious, if you will, but it's always a factor because, again, how do you do anything right without having God in it? And one thing I always tell the cadets, as I told my ROTC cadets when I was commander down at Branson, I forgot to mention that I was the ROTC commander for a while, but I always say the first law of leadership is love. If you don't love your people, then you don't have the right to tell them anything.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you've got to start there. Else you're not speaking from the right position, from the right heart. And I would like it, honey, if you'd talk a little bit about how you run your meetings and how you keep Christ in the middle of what you guys do.
Sure. So as Cris mentioned, I work for an organization called Classical Conversations. We're a worldwide homeschool organization. We're in 57 countries. Started 27 years ago. Our involvement became when our daughter was 4 years old. We just couldn't imagine sending her to public school all day, not knowing what the beliefs were.
And I was in the Guard, and so
And we could
we
travel
wanted to
together.
travel together.
So started for somewhat selfish reasons because we wanted our kids to be able to see the world and not be tied to somebody's calendar, and then not knowing how formidable their little minds are, not knowing who was going to be instructing her and what beliefs they had at such a young age. So we started homeschooling. In May, we just completed 21 years of homeschooling, so we homeschooled our kids all the way through. That's how I became involved in Classical Conversations. So we've been a part of Classical Conversations for 11 or 12 of those years. What we do as an organization, our mission is to know God and make him known. And we do that through education, but we teach, if you will, the parents, we coach parents, support and equip parents that they're the primary teacher of their children and that we will help them with that, but we will not step in between them and their children. So we meet 1 day a week for 30 weeks for the junior high and high school, 24 weeks for the younger kids. Parents are all coming together for what we call community, and they're meeting 1 day a week and doing science experiments and art projects and fun things together. When they're older, it's the literature discussions and those types of things. And then they go home and they homeschool for 4 days. And then they come back and they're in community 1 day a week. And so what I get the pleasure of doing now is, because now I'm no longer a homeschool parent, which seems crazy, is I coach the leaders of the leaders, how to help get communities started in their local communities. There are a lot of Christian parents out there who are looking for solutions. Most families now are dual income families, so it's how do I do that even when I'm working full time? So we try to partner with families. We certainly don't want to become the teachers. We want them to be the teachers, but we try to show them how to do that. It's a good bridge because we're meeting 1 day a week for families to have that connectivity, but then still try to get on their feet and figure out what is it? What is their family mission? What do they want their children to know when they leave home? And so it's an amazing opportunity. I get to meet with people all the time. We travel, as Cris said. It's certainly redeemed my education. I'm a product of modern education, and homeschooling my children has
Whoa.
far surpassed any knowledge or understanding that I had before.
Wow.
Well, Michelle did 90 to 95%, maybe 99% of the teaching of our children, but proof that it works our children are all successful.
Absolutely.
And so I give great credit to her. I was gone a lot, and also I'm too hard-headed to teach too much. But she did a great job, and it does work. And you know, it's a great program for military families, because one thing that was driving us, she said, we wanted to, when I wasn't at war, we wanted to be together. So if I went to Hawaii for a hardship TDY, or somewhere, you know, we wanted to travel together. And so we've been all over the United States. And I have to say, as an example, so one time, this was actually for Sierra Nevada while I was in the Guard, but we're in Rome and Germany and Poland doing some work, and I actually did some work, but we ended up in Rome. And so my son, who's 7, Sam, does a presentation in class of the Sistine Chapel. And they said, how did you get this? He said, I went there. some of the opportunities that come from the military, and additionally from homeschooling with that. It was really cool.
Yeah, it allowed us to educate our children while we were living life.
Wow.
They were
that's
able to
awesome.
see the things and go to the places, and you get the luxury as a homeschooler to say, this is what we're going to study because we're going to go there. And then we're going to debrief afterwards for mastery. So it was an amazing opportunity. And Classical Conversations was a huge part of, we knew we were going to have a CC community wherever we moved next. And if there wasn't one, I was going to start one, and we were going to get some friends really quickly to continue this homeschool program.
Sounds like a wonderful program. When you were talking, I thought about your daughter and everything. I'm going, yeah, there's nothing wrong with homeschooling. That's for sure. Yeah, and like you were talking about today, you don't know what they're being taught or.
No, and we don't shy away. I will at least speak for our program, which I think is the best one out there. There's a lot of choices, but for our program, we don't shy away from the world, but we teach kids how to think and to love learning. So it's more about the skills than it is the content, so that when they hit the age where they start owning their faith for themselves and understanding what they believe and why they believe it, which studies show us so many of our youth are Christian attendees, and then they go off to college, and then they turn away from their faith. We embrace that. We use literature and things that maybe they don't have a dog in the fight with, but they learn how to have a persuasive, respectful conversation with someone of a different viewpoint, so that as they get older, when it becomes something more near and dear to their heart, they have the skills of persuasion, and they can stand on their faith, and they can talk about why they believe what they believe, not just because my mom and dad say so.
Oh, that's awesome. I wish I had that. I'm currently in college taking apologetics.
Yes.
So that would
Yes.
have been
Well,
perfect.
every one of our children have the ability to stand up and lead anything. They're not afraid to speak, and they're
Not all
also
of them
smart
love
enough
it.
to back it up, huh?
Not all of them love it, but they're capable.
Like maybe Sam, but
They're able to critically
but he's
think.
very good
If
at
they're
it
able to
when
critically
he's-
think, that's right.
Yeah,
And-
yes.
And that is not because of us as homeschool parents. That's because of the Classical Conversations program, and keeping you, forcing some of those conversations that as a homeschool mom, especially with maybe a husband deployed, I would love to tell you I would have gotten to that, but daily life may have eaten me up, and I wouldn't have gotten to that conversation before they left my home. It reminds you weekly, we are raising adults. And what do you need to accomplish in that short time before they leave your home?
Wouldn't that be a nice thought in public school, that you're,
Oh, yeah.
you're just raising adults? You're not raising
Yeah.
this party or that party or persuasion or whatever.
Right.
That
And we're
just
not
gets me.
anti-public school.
Oh,
There's
no.
some good ones, but all of them need those good principles and characters, because and we keep thinking we're doing something good for people or for kids when we lay off of them. It's not true. They need discipline, and it can save their life and create a good future for them.
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense, So, I'm just trying to it's been so interesting, I'm kind of getting tied up into it. So anyway, to summarize, if this man tells you, I can tell you, but I'll have to kill you, he's one of them that can really, really can get away with saying
I
that,
can't believe
apparently.
you said that.
I have to watch it because we'll get to talking about the F-15 or the F-16 or certain things, and then I have to remember that, no, I actually can't say this to my wife or my children. So we watch it. My son entering the Air Force, sometimes I really want to tell him things. I go, no, you'll learn.
I used to live in Gardner, Kansas for a while, and we happened to have an apartment on the old naval housing that was with Gardner Naval Air Station. And there was one day that there was somebody that was real close to our area. I never knew where they were from, but they had Navy personnel in their family, and they come just years down, coming in slow across, and then just to let their families know they were there. Then they'll come out to the airport, and we used to run over to the airport and watch them. And one day, a couple of the kids ran out to greet the plane after it stopped, and so I told my son, "Go with him." And he got the call up on the side of a 15, and of course, then they realized that what they were doing and stopped it. But it was a pretty big deal for him. I know that. Of course, I loved it too. I loved watching them fly. So we got. I'm starting to run out. I can't believe I'm running out of questions. And this one always talks, so she's really letting me down today.
I'm just listening. I love it.
I can talk some more about some things. if-
Absolutely.
Well,
We want to hear what you have to say.
let me say this, and of course, all veterans have done some wild and crazy things, and I mean very good things. But I want to talk about courage. You know, when I talk about officership, or serving the nation, I always taught my cadets and my children that leadership is much more important than even flying the F-15 and F-16. As wonderful as that is. And I would do it the rest of my life if they didn't think I was old. But leadership is the most important thing. Character is the most important thing. If you get that right, then all these other things, including the technical things, but even more importantly, the things that affect our nation and its future are done so much better. Back to that law of love your peeps first. You know, when I think about what our government does and should do, I think the first thing you have to do is love your nation.
Mm-hmm.
If I vote for a president, it's because I believe, whichever one I think loves our country the most, that's the one I'm voting for. The other stuff is small stuff in comparison.
It makes sense.
But we have to think about the future, and this is a leadership thing. Actually, it's a love of nation and love of God thing. We make decisions and reactions based on the next year or months, or maybe we have this 5-year plan in the Pentagon, things like that. I go, oh no. We need to think about things and respond and make decisions in a way that affects the next 1,000 years of our country, and something that we would find pride in when our grandchildren and our great-great-great-grandchildren visit our gravesite and say, now my dad or mom, they were patriots. They did the right thing, and therefore, I'm free.
Unfortunately, and I've got some not twisted views, just some pretty strict views. They're thinking about, what can I do that'll get my name known and won't be found out that's screwed up until I'm long gone? Instead of, like you said, worrying about the next 1,000 years and what the people are going to be like then, they worry about their lifetime, and that's about the end of that.
A true legacy, not fame, not
right.
fortune, but a true legacy that your children and beyond can say, all right, I'm proud of who I am and my name because of what my father, grandfather, grandmother did. I think about that when I speak to the ROTC kids when I had them, and now I have the Civil Air Patrol cadets to talk to, and so we always go down that road. Yes, I'll help you learn to fly. Yes, I'll help you get scholarships for the academy or ROTC. But yes, we're going to talk about the fact that your character is more important
That's right.
than your wings. I do have my wings on, yes. That's where it has to start.
That's true for every man,
Yeah.
everywhere. But
Yes.
Well, and you can be the best fighter
Unfortunately.
pilot and still not be seen as a leader, if that makes sense what I'm saying. I mean, and there's a book right now because I'm doing my healthcare administration doctorate, and the very first book in one of the classes was the 9 principles of Colin Powell's leadership and all that stuff that we had to read. And I was like, that is so true. Exactly what you're saying. Leadership, loving your neighbor, listening, and I'm going to say being a part of them too. I mean, you can't hold yourself up here and your men down here. You have to be part of them.
Oh, yes. If you put yourself above your people, you're missing the whole point. Now,
Yeah.
I got to say, my wife does this wonderfully. Her and the ladies, mostly ladies that work for her, they're always putting the group, the parents, the kids first. And that's what makes them successful.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to do the same thing in the military. And by the way, I want to emphasize or follow up on something you said right at the beginning. You know, it's hard to get out of the service, and my dad warned me that when I got out, I would feel a loss of camaraderie and friendship. And it's not always true, but it is often true. And I just want to say to all those who are listening, thank you for your service, and I mean that. Because I have tried to provide freedom for my family. And by the way, that's why I fight. That's why I'm a warrior. It's for her and my kids and you and yours. That's why we should love our country. That's why we should fight, because we want them to live free.
Yes.
And every person that did this, and if you can't see me, I'm raising my right hand. Every person that raises their right hand is a hero. And we need to recognize that.
Yes.
And we need to not forget our brethren, which we're all busy people, right? We need to not forget our brethren. Thank our brothers and sisters for what they have done. And I have to thank those there's many who have raised their right hand and then couldn't go, or had medical difficulties or whatever, couldn't even. I know one guy, a wonderful man down in Branson, who couldn't finish basic training because of a heart murmur. It just like to broke his heart. But I love him for that, and it reminds me that patriots are not in what we do all the time, but for how we feel about our nation. That's what makes us brothers and sisters.
And the sad part to me, and I'm sure you'll agree, is patriot, that's almost a dirty word anymore. Just like they're saying Christian nationalists.
Oh, what is that? How did we get there, brother?
I have no idea.
You know what?
People that don't like us want to
I
call
can tell
name.
you.
Okay.
It started in the 1920s. It's not an accident. The education system is working. It's doing exactly what it was intended to do. And it starts with the family. If you can break up families, then you can do all kinds of things. It's not an accident, and we should be able to look at history and see exactly how we got here. It was
That's a good point.
intended, and now we have to unite and say we don't like it. We're going to choose something different.
They've been saying that, and they said exactly what you said. You break up that smallest unit, which will break up the next smallest unit. And it's like, people are like, well, we got to go to Washington and change their mind. It's not about Washington. It's about back down to the family and the
That's
core
right.
of the nation.
That's right.
So true. But if we don't watch the power that we have in
True.
Washington, we will, all they got to do is take your guns and put you in a bad position, and all of a sudden you have to say yes.
Yes, but we vote for those people.
No, it's true, right?
And so in a democracy, if parents would understand what they're giving up and what they're sacrificing every day, if they would, it's a hardship. I don't mean to be insensitive. Everybody has decisions they have to make. But if we continue going through with, well, it's not great, but we just have to do it, you're making a sacrifice and you're making that decision. you may have to give up some things to pull your kids out of a system that you don't think is working, but we believe in a big God.
Yeah, amen.
And where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Right on.
I
Well, the
had a-
minute you have schools, sorry, the minute you have schools coming up and saying World War II didn't happen, World War I didn't happen, that's a slap in the face to our servicemen and women who serve there.
Well, and it's a
Right.
setup for them. You know, you only got to lose real bad once to not have freedom anymore.
Yeah.
And you remember Ronald Reagan said, this is something we have to fight for again and again and again. And how true is that right now?
Oh,
You-
absolutely.
We have to have a people group that understands what the definition of freedom is and why they should want that. We're so far off of not even the way I would define freedom. I don't think would be the same definition to maybe our neighbor or someone, not my neighbor, sorry. I just mean a neighbor.
Yeah.
We've lost our way a little
Oh,
bit.
absolutely. And like you said, back in the 20s, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And,
Yes, yeah,
And then in the 60s,
yeah.
I'm just looking to see if I don't know how I looked to see if anybody's listening. The CIA going out into the inner city, passing out cocaine and heroin.
Oh, my goodness.
It's all recorded.
And that's fine. And then we don't have a workforce, we've got to send our production elsewhere. And now we don't have families in the inner city, and it's just,
And that
Yeah,
was
it's all been a
intended too.
plan.
That was part of the plan. We used to have an independent spirit. People would be start their own companies, entrepreneurs, and we needed workers in the factories. And so we had to dumb down America, if you will, to break the spirit of you can do this on your own. We need 95% of this base to be the worker bees. And so that's how the education system was planned. In fact, we just started, our founder, Lee Borton's, created a math program. And I didn't know this until we started going through the math program, but you could go to our website and learn a lot more than I would be able to tell you today. But essentially what happened is in the 60s, we were in the space race. And so, and if you think about who was in charge in the 60s, it's probably not the people of high character that you're thinking of, but that's who was making the decisions. And so our entire math education from then moving forward was not intended to educate people about mathematics, the general student. It was to weed out and find the elites
oh, okay.
so that they could pull them into the space race and we could win that. So if you graduated high school thinking I'm not good at math or I just don't know math, that was intended. They were looking for those unicorns, if you will, to pull them out, and then we've never got back on track. And so this program is all about redeeming your math, learning math, seeing the beauty of God's creation using math. And that's essentially what our program does, is it acknowledges creation and how things are all intertwined in a universe, not a multiverse, and that God is at the center, and then yes, you have math and you have science and you have English, but it all points back to God.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to talk to my producer real quick. We're going to go till 55 if that's okay. I didn't want to, this isn't too good,
Cool.
too good
Well,
to
I'm
stop.
sitting here
That's
thinking,
awesome.
I'm like, we have the educator here, and we have the warrior
Defender.
or the serviceman, and I'm just like going, this is awesome, and they're a unit, and they have Christ as a center, which is exactly what you're talking about, and Christ as a center, and your values and your love for your country and your leadership and yours too, just knowing, but then you love the kids. I'm going to say that too, and you've probably directed and guided so many kids, both of you, in a direction to show them what you're talking about: love, leadership, the right path to go down versus, hey, I'm just going to like sit back and let somebody else do it for me, if that makes sense. Because I'm
Right.
just, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yes.
If that, it's just like, yeah.
Well, you know, you remind me that we often discuss this. Why would people want to do bad things and influence their children in a bad way and give them bad choices, when if you love them, you would say, no, we need to do the right thing, teach the right thing, always do the right thing. And you would think that this would be a natural filter on what we do as citizens and parents. But it's not. So
Well-
many seem to think that if I just let go, somehow that's going to work out for my kids.
Yeah.
We didn't get here, we didn't form a nation by just letting go.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think I know what you're saying, but for clarification, it's not that parents want to do bad things. I think we learned a lot of things in COVID. I hate to bring that up, but parents had completely hands off and trusted everything to the school system. And then they started seeing some things. And,
COVID awoke in their eyes. 'cause
and
they hadn't
realizing
heard-
some
yeah.
things. And so it's the assumption that they assumed it was good.
Well, here's what I meant by that. The people, our so-called leaders, politicians, etc., are creating policy that is actually going to possibly destroy the lives of their own children. That's what I'm saying. I agree with you, but what I meant was from the bigger picture.
Right.
Why would you create policy? Why would you do things and make decisions and put your children in a position of not possibly learning the truth and maybe at worst losing their life or their freedom over your ridiculous decisions? I don't understand it
I don't-
because I love my kids
Well,
and
usually,
I want them to respect me, us, our life.
usually those same leaders who would say they don't have a faith or that would make fun of your and my faith and beliefs have a stronger faith than you and I could ever think of. It's just not in Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not wanting to go there, but I understand.
She did.
Oh, there's been a couple of places we could have gone today that we probably shouldn't. It's just, it amazes me that somebody can live in this country, reap all the benefits, and then turn their back on it.
Oh,
It just,
No
it
kidding.
just blows my mind.
how can you not see it, right?
It's
Yeah.
the
How can
age
you
of
not see it?
entitlement.
How
Yes.
you got
Oh,
there?
yes.
And what is it about? I also talked about this with my children and ROTC cadets in the day. I go, what is it? What is it about our courage when we have people that will storm a machine gun nest at the almost certain cost of their life for their brothers and sisters, but yet we won't raise our hand and say, I do not agree with you, ma'am or sir. Where is that courage these days?
So I have a different viewpoint because I swim in a different pool of people. I see young people that are amazing and give me hope for this nation and this world and until Jesus comes back. They're out there. I think most of us are in environments where we don't see the youth in that way, and society has just said, oh, they're just teenagers. Expect nothing, basically, of them because they're teenagers.
And really, some of those teenagers are starting to put the country back on track because they're seeing
Exactly.
the way the country went. Because I've seen it too. It's like they've had the parents that have been misguiding them and all that. But then they've had, and because thank you for being a ROTC commander. Because I had a student, I taught high school math one time, and we saw this, and this girl came in, and she was going down the same path exactly as her mother was, which was not going to be good for her. And her ROTC commander stepped in and basically became the parental or the father figure, the mother figure, whatever it was, and her life changed. And now, yes, her mom still continues down that path, but her daughter is now on the right path of saying, this is respect. This is how I should be going. And so, again, it's the leadership and the love. You gave yourself and I'm going to say it to even those who, men and women who serve, they gave of themselves. And like you said, there's many that wanted to that couldn't, and I respect them too, because I was one of them mostly. And my dad taught me what it was meant to be an American, to respect the flag, to know what it's like to be free, and he held me accountable for it. And so to see people I've had that servicemen who feel like they are basically being, I don't want to say trampled on, but not respected anymore for their service because of the new leaderships and things that are going on, it breaks my heart too, because I'm like, they deserve that respect. They deserve that thank you, and not just, It was just, that was what they chose to do for their life. And it's like, that's a great sacrifice, just to go into the military. It's a great sacrifice.
It is.
So-
You give up part of your freedom, part of yourself. But by the way, I wasn't talking about the children or the youth necessarily on the fear to stand up and question things. I'm talking about us.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about our nation's administration and Congress, and I guess at a lot of levels, but we seem to have lost the common sense and the courage to say, wait a minute, I don't agree. Let's talk about that. I'm not talking about the youth, although it'll trickle down to them too if we don't fix that.
Well, you drive around right now, and there's 2 signs in our yard. I would have never thought to have a sign in my yard saying no late-term abortions. I'm just going to go there. I mean, and when does somebody sit there and say, because I heard this the other day on the radio of one state that's basically saying the baby can be 90 days old out of the womb and still be killed.
Oh, no.
At what point does that become right? I mean, they're full-fledged humans. And I'm not going farther than that, but it's like they have a right to live out their life.
Well, if you respect people, you should respect all people,
Absolutely.
including those little bitty ones, right? I don't get that either. That's some things I just don't get, and that would be one of them. If you don't respect life, I'm sorry, I think we're maybe missing the point.
Oh, absolutely. And the worst part about it is that's the message that's being sent out now on all the media, almost all of it. And I'm one of those people, though. I was raised, my father and mother should have been my grandma and granddad. Dad was 46 when he had me, and I was the oldest of the kids. There was 2 more behind me. So the sir, ma'am, respect your betters, kind of thing like that. And it drives her nuts because I'll go to the doctor's office and I'll come home and say, what did the doctor say? Well, he told me to take this. Well, why did he tell you this? What do you want to do? Oh, no, he just told me to take it. I just kind of blindly go with what they said, but
That's because I'm a nurse, and I know you have the right to say, question what they're
I know,
doing.
but I was taught that they know what they're doing, but it doesn't really. We got about 2 minutes left. Do you guys have anything you'd like to? One last major comment you'd like to make?
I'll say something and I'll let you close. This is a perfect example of bringing hope to the nation. So yes, there's a lot bad out there, and we hear it and we're inundated with it in our daily lives. But we have to start doing this part more. We have to start sharing the good news, seeing the unseen, all of these stories that we know God is working every day.
Yes.
And for not forgetting that by our inundation of all the negative and the grossness, if that's the appropriate word, of what we hear when we turn on the news. So thanks for having us.
Oh,
Thanks for
great.
letting me jump in. I'll let you close.
Well, I hope this goes with everything we've said, but, there's a decision matrix that we should all use. But the first great big square in that decision matrix is it right or is it wrong? Now, there's other things we have to think about. Is it we need to start with, is it the right thing to do? And that'll correct a lot of things. You know, you've heard the statement, just do no wrong. And I think maybe Jesus said that. Just do no wrong. Do the right thing, and the rest will work out. And the principles should sustain us in that. And I just want to thank you again also from myself for
Definitely.
having us.
It's been our pleasure. And that's kind of one of our models around here is doing the right thing because it's the right thing. They take good care of us. Bishop Dennis, thank you for
Thank you, Dennis.
producing again today. Appreciate it every week.
And those of
Boss?
you who are watching, remember to check your buddy, and let's get that 22 down.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll see you again in a month. And we should enjoy being in your home or on your radio. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much, Colonel,
you all.
ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.